Hey everyone, covering chapter 1 from Learning from the Stranger as we talk through the story of Abraham and the king. In this story, we have two main characters. We have the king who sees an opportunity to strengthen his political positioning. He wants to marry the sister of this wealthy nomad who's apparently decided to camp out in his country. But he believes this is the sister because that's what he's been told by Abraham. However, he's met by God in a dream, and in this, God reveals that Abraham hasn't been honest. This is actually his wife. And the truth is revealed in this dream to the king, which scares him. As we look through this story, the king is the one who holds the positional power, the authority. He is the person whose country he is sitting in. It's hard for him to feel fear, and yet he is very vulnerable. And that's because the second character in this story, Abraham, is an unknown to him. He doesn't know who he is and what he represents. And in many ways, Abraham apparently doesn't know who he is and what he represents because he forgets it in this story. His actions actually undermine his mission. So when he and his God are made known to the king and the people in that land, he's almost lost the right to stand in righteousness in front of one of the nations that he's actually been called to be a blessing to. So the chapter talks about the irony that we see some oxymorons happening. We have a prophet who doesn't share the message that he's been given to share. We have a foreign king who's actually the mouthpiece of God back to that prophet. We have the local citizens who are worried that they had sinned against both a God and a set of values that they didn't know or follow. And then we have Abraham's pervasive fear of danger, despite God's consistent protection and reminder of his love and protection for Abraham moving forward. So this irony causes us to see kind of four causes of failure. First of all, we see fear. That safety and future well-being, as is for all of us, it's a significant motivator for Abraham as a stranger in a new land. If there's one place in this chapter where I can absolutely empathize with this guy, this is it. I have a daughter, I have a wife. I'm very concerned about fear not becoming a motivator in my life, but I know that often I am. And we also see power. The lack of power as an immigrant influences how Abraham reacts and wields the power. Yet the king, who has all the institutional authority, he's the one in charge. He actually defers to the nomad in his land because he trusts that the God who came to him in a dream had something valuable to say. The third cause of failure that we see in Abraham is that knowledge, the experiences of the past that Abraham had about Lot's nephew in Sodom and Gomorrah influence how Abraham is informed, rightly or wrongly, on what to expect from this new situation in the unknown land he's in. He trusts not in what he has been told by God, but in what he believes to be true. And then finally, the fourth cause of failure is perspective. Abraham, first of all, has an understanding of God's faithfulness, and it's skewed. Perhaps due to his immature and baby faith, the book doesn't go into a whole lot of defense of him in this moment, but I would defend Abraham in that way, recognizing he's young in this. This is not something that he has grown up in. And he believes, second of all, that God is with him, but not with anyone else. So his perspective is that he has a territorial approach to faith, that he wrongly assumes faith is his to bring to others, and not that they can come and that the Lord can work through them in his life. So because of this, Abraham is he's almost reversed his role as a blessing to the other nations. He's very close to being a curse rather than a blessing. And when faced with an opportunity to be a blessing to another culture and another people, Abraham's human nature almost upends his mission from God as he ignores his calling, God's former and promise to have future faithfulness, and the boldness that he's called to demonstrate. As I was reading through this, I love this story. This was such a cool way to look at it. I never thought of it this way. But it reminded me of the political approach from the Bowman and Deal, the four-frame model that we learned about in that class. It's very poorly adapted, but Abraham, in his fear and weakness, attempts to wrangle power from a situation where he is powerless. He attempts to hide his true agenda to keep an upper hand, and he does not rely on straightforward communication in how he approaches the situation. He attempts to be very savvy, but ultimately that almost ruins his mission. I really resonated with this story. I resonated with the quote, "We live alongside vulnerable strangers if we have eyes to see." Dealing with the inhabitants of Gerar would have been a more fearful thing had the one on the throne, the king, chosen to wield his power for his own convenience. And I pray that my own faith in moments where I am the vulnerable stranger is stronger than Abraham's, But more than that, I pray that my own willingness to yield rather than wield power is like that of the king in this situation. Thanks, guys.